Senator Brian Schatz, Democrat from Hawaii, a lifelong Hawaiian, joins us now and is going to, of course, be with the president for the tour and the meetings today. Senator, thank you very much. And, our condolences. The whole nation, the world has really been gripped by this as we've watched the struggles there. Tell me about the frustration on the ground and the federal and local response. We know the governor just this weekend was critical of the immediate response of the emergency leader there in Hawaii, who was very defensive about this, but eventually did resign and made the decision, apparently, not to set off the sirens.
Well, this is the most devastating wildfire in more than 100 years in the United States. As you mentioned, 114 dead, and the death toll continues to mount. 2,200 structures totally destroyed. It's really like nothing I've ever seen. It's like a war zone. And so I'm happy that the president and the first lady are arriving in a few hours to tour the damage and to talk to families and talk to first responders. Within the first 6 hours, the president signed the major disaster declaration. It just so happened that the person who runs FEMA for our region happened to be in Honolulu for a conference. And so he was immediately on the job. So, I've never seen such a mobilization of federal resources, and I've been through, tsunamis and hurricanes and small wildfires and volcanic eruptions. But we've never seen such a federal mobilization. But that's also because we've never seen such a devastating, severe weather event. So always more to do. And one of the things that I'm hoping for is a commitment for the long run. We are still in an emergency situation. Lots of people still don't have power and connectivity, and not everybody has found housing, although we're probably about 95% there. But there's a lot of work to do over a long period of time. And Maui County is resilient. The people of Maui are strong, but we're going to need help from everybody.
Now, in terms of the 850 people still listed as missing, what is your hope in terms of perhaps a large number of those are just because of communications and are really alive and well somewhere with relatives, with friends? But how do you see that number being reduced? Or do you think that it is really that number of people who may really be lost?
I don't know. Obviously, the hope is that to the extent that we still have 10 to 15,000 people without reliable telecommunications, we're hoping that a large percentage of that 850 is just about not having cell coverage and not having checked in with the government. A lot of people, having lost everything, are not immediately thinking about checking in with the government. They're thinking about their own physical and mental survival. So we hope it's that, but we just don't know. FEMA has brought in a team of technicians with cadaver dogs, and they're working with the FBI and the coroner's office to identify the remains. But it is a slow process to get it right, and we just don't know what the total number of dead will be.
Do you think that while the FEMA response, as you point out, there was someone who's in charge of the region who was there for a conference so that they did do what they needed to do? The president made the emergency designation, but he was on Rehoboth. He didn't come out and speak publicly. Is there a part of this that is public perception, but that's part of politics, part of being a leader?
Well, I think that, listen, I guess I would offer this. Like I said, I've never seen such a federal mobilization. There are more than 1,000 federal personnel on the ground. This was a catastrophe. And I think it's fair to say it overwhelmed the resources available to the Maui Emergency Management Agency, the Maui Police Department, the Maui Fire Department. Everyone worked as hard as they could, but they were clearly very overwhelmed. Now that federal resources are fully mobilized, we're getting into a better rhythm. But, we're not out of this. This is really, really challenging stuff. I will say that as I, go to Maui about every other day or every third day to try to get as much information as I can, help as much as I can, but also stay out of the way. People are not talking about President Biden and Rehoboth. People are talking about FEMA. They're talking about the Department of Defense. They're talking about the Coast Guard. And there was some frustration, some acute frustration that the roads were shut down for West Maui. That's obviously not a federal decision. But that was one of the reasons that people were cut off from sort of civilization in terms of being able to get prescriptions or even get groceries or, put a generator on a truck. So that was a cause of acute frustration at the beginning. And it got resolved once the National Guard was in a position to secure Lahaina town. So, look, we've got a long road and this is an awful situation. But we're now in a position where we're working very closely together, state, federal, county, and especially not just nonprofits, but individual people who have no affiliation at all. People with just a jet ski or a Toyota Tacoma or whatever it may be to try to provide some relief to their friends and family.
Which is just extraordinary about the American response, as well as the local response, the community there, and the strength. But just one final thing. The National Guard is there, and I know those troops are Hawaiian troops, state-ordered. But is there more that the military can do to help the supply chain issue, whatever backlogs there are, especially as you get into reconstruction?
I talked to Charlie Flynn, the head of the U.S. Army Pacific. I've talked to Secretary Austin, and they have promised and followed up on this promise to provide the full resources of the Department of Defense. Those resources have to be requested through our local emergency managers, and they're doing that. But I think it is fair to say that there is nothing that the local government has asked of the Department of Defense that the Department of Defense has not said yes to. So they are fully engaged in a joint command structure. And I've been very, very impressed. The Secretary of the Navy called me, and Indo-PACOM is fully engaged through the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency.